I never forgot the day my boss called me lazy. It wasn't just a casual comment. It was the kind of insult that sticks with you, the kind that echoes in your head long after it's said. "You're lazy. You'll never amount to anything here," he sneered, looking down his nose at me as if I were nothing. I smiled, nodded, and walked away, but inside, something snapped. I had always been a hard worker. I was the first one in the office every morning and often the last to leave. I took pride in my work, in proving people wrong when they doubted me. Yet here was someone I respected, or at least pretended to, telling me I wasn't good enough. I was 26, ambitious, and drowning in a job that barely paid my bills. My boss, Mr. Crane, was the kind of man who thrived on putting people down to feel taller himself. He had climbed the corporate ladder by crushing anyone in his path, and for a long time I thought I could learn from him. But that day, something inside me shifted. After work, I sat in my small apartment staring at the ceiling. The city lights flickered outside my window, indifferent to my pain. I thought about all the late nights I'd spent finishing projects, the weekends I'd sacrificed, the weekends he had spent golfing and drinking at exclusive clubs. And suddenly I didn't just feel angry, I felt powerless. But power, I realized, could be taken, not begged for, not asked. Taken. I began thinking differently. I started reading about the business world, not just my small corner of it, but the bigger picture. I learned about company acquisitions, investments, and entrepreneurship. Slowly, almost obsessively, I plotted a path forward. I also noticed something else: my boss's arrogance. Mr. Crane was careless. He flaunted his wealth and status, often bragging about insider deals and opportunities he thought no one could ever touch. He underestimated everyone around him, and that would be his mistake. Meanwhile, I kept showing up at work, still performing as if nothing had changed. People noticed my energy, my commitment, but they didn't know the storm brewing beneath my calm exterior. Every project I completed, every problem I solved, I filed away as part of my strategy, learning everything I could about the business and the people who ran it. Then came the tipping point. I was asked to lead a small team on a major project. My heart raced as I realized this was my chance, not just to prove myself, but to understand the business from the inside out. I threw myself into it with everything I had. I documented processes, tracked finances, and paid attention to the company's weak spots. Things no one else noticed because they were blinded by complacency. At the same time, I quietly started saving money. Every spare dollar went into investments. I learned the stock market, corporate mergers, and small-scale acquisitions. I read legal documents, business reports, and anything I could get my hands on about the companies my boss admired and despised. Most importantly, I learned patience. Revenge, I realized, isn't about lashing out. It's about preparation. It's about becoming unstoppable while everyone else underestimates you. While Mr. Crane was busy belittling me and chasing superficial glory, I was building a foundation that no insult, no smirk, no mocking tone could touch. And then, after 2 years of quiet planning, it happened. A small competitor of Mr. Crane's company was up for sale. The deal was complicated, and everyone assumed only a billionaire or a large corporation could make a move. Everyone except me. I had the savings, the strategy, and the knowledge. Most importantly, I had the drive. I stepped into a world Mr. Crane believed was reserved for people like him. Arrogant, reckless, untouchable. I wasn't reckless. I was precise. And I was ready. Because the day he called me lazy was the day I promised myself one thing: he would regret underestimating me. The moment I started moving behind the scenes, everything changed. At work, I still smiled. I still answered emails on time. I still acted like the obedient, lazy employee my boss loved to mock. But every meeting, every strategy discussion, every casual office chat became a chance to learn something valuable. I was building an invisible map of his empire. Mr. Crane, of course, never suspected a thing. He bragged about his dominance in the market, laughed at competitors, and flaunted his successes. He assumed I was beneath him, just another cog in his machine. And that was exactly what I needed him to believe. The first sign of tension came when I spotted a weakness in one of our major contracts. A small clause, buried deep in legal jargon, could be leveraged if handled correctly. I quietly researched it, spoke to lawyers, and even networked with industry insiders without him noticing. I learned things no one at my level was supposed to know, and with each discovery, my confidence grew. Then came the betrayal. Though I didn't see it coming at first, one evening Mr. Crane called me into his office. I thought it might be a promotion, or at least a minor acknowledgement of my work. Instead, he handed me a document and smirked. "This is your performance review," he said. "We've decided you're not cut out for this company. You're lazy, unmotivated, and frankly, a liability. Pack your things." I stared at him, speechless. Every late night, every sacrifice, every ounce of effort, it meant nothing to him. I had trusted him to see me, to recognize my dedication, and he had thrown it all away with a single insult. But instead of breaking me, it ignited something far stronger. I left the office that day with a quiet determination. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply walked out, but every step I took was a promise. He would pay for underestimating me. For the next few months, I immersed myself in the deal I had been preparing for, the acquisition of the company behind his back. I networked with investors, built partnerships, and secured funding. Every conversation, every negotiation was a calculated move. Meanwhile, Mr. Crane continued his arrogance. He boasted to colleagues, flaunted his wealth, and openly dismissed the smaller players in the market, including me. The irony was delicious. While he mocked the lazy employee, I was quietly orchestrating a takeover that would leave him speechless. I even went as far as visiting his company, not as an employee, but as an interested investor. He smiled at me as if nothing had changed, never suspecting that I had the power to destroy him, not violently, but financially and strategically. The day I finally secured the deal, I couldn't believe it. The company he had admired, the very competitor he dismissed as irrelevant, was mine. And just like that, I had the tools to confront the man who had humiliated me. But I didn't rush to gloat. I had learned that patience was more satisfying than anger. I watched, I waited, and I let the tension build. The thrill wasn't in immediate revenge, it was in knowing the day of reckoning would be perfect. And then came the first direct blow. I made subtle moves to redirect contracts, siphon clients, and showcase my company as a stronger alternative. Slowly, Mr. Crane began noticing the shift. His deals were under pressure, his reputation slightly tarnished, and the people who once admired him started asking questions. He didn't know it yet, but the lazy employee he mocked had become the force he could never predict. And that realization, that moment when arrogance meets reality, was going to be unforgettable. I could feel it. The moment was coming. Every move I had made was leading to this. The company I had quietly built behind his back was now not just a competitor. It was a reflection of everything he had mocked me for. Every client I won, every contract I secured, every partnership I formed was another step toward turning the tables. But I didn't want him to just lose. I wanted him to see the truth. I wanted him to understand the consequences of underestimating someone, of thinking that insulting another human being could ever make you untouchable. I carefully crafted the final phase. I invited him, casually, to a business event, one of those networking nights where CEOs flaunt their achievements. He arrived, confident and arrogant, certain he was the star of the room. And in a way, he was. Until the moment I stepped in. I walked past him, shaking hands with industry leaders, clients, and partners, people he had once laughed at me for trying to impress. And then, the announcement. A quiet, professional email, copied to key investors and board members. I had acquired the very company he had dismissed as insignificant. He froze. For a moment, the smirk disappeared. His eyes widened. His confident posture faltered. People whispered, turned to look. And slowly, the reality sank in. The man who had called me lazy, the one who had destroyed my confidence with a single sentence, was now powerless in the face of my success. He tried to recover, smiling awkwardly, making small talk, but it was too late. The damage was done. Every move he had made to belittle me, every moment he thought I was beneath him, had fueled the rise of the very person he had underestimated. Later in a private meeting, he finally confronted me. How did you even manage this?" he stammered, his voice tight. I looked him in the eye and said, calmly, "You called me lazy. You underestimated me. I just showed you what I was capable of without your approval." His face went pale. He had no words left. No comeback. No insults. Nothing. Just the crushing realization that he had played himself. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Justice, I realized, isn't about shouting. It's about letting the truth speak for itself. And in that room, the truth was louder than any words he could have said. From that moment, the balance had shifted. I wasn't just the lazy employee anymore. I was the one with the power, the vision, and the results. And every client, every contract, every board member I worked with reminded him of what he had dismissed for so long. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving, first to him and then to myself, that determination, strategy, and patience were stronger than arrogance and cruelty. And in the weeks that followed, his company started to feel the pressure. Clients who had once trusted him began reaching out to me. Partnerships he had taken for granted were now mine. Every move he made to regain his dominance was thwarted, not by chance, but by careful planning. The moment of truth, the climax of years of quiet strategy and relentless work, had arrived, and it was sweeter than I had ever imagined. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel the satisfaction, not of hurting him, but of overcoming everything he had thrown at me, of turning his own arrogance into my stepping stone. I realized something important that day. Revenge isn't about anger. It's about empowerment. It's about rising higher, not just to show someone else, but to finally prove to yourself that you are capable of far more than anyone, even the people closest to you, can imagine. And for Mr. Crane, the lesson was clear. Never underestimate the quiet ones. After the storm settled, life felt different. Calm, but charged with a sense of hard-earned victory. I wasn't the same person who had walked into that office years ago, head held low, hurt by a single word. I had transformed, not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through patience, persistence, and focus. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every quiet plan had led to this. Mr. Crane? He was still in the company, but everything had changed. He walked the halls differently now, less arrogance, more caution. He had lost not just clients and deals, but the invisible control he had always wielded over everyone around him. People who once feared him now approached me, and every time he saw me in a meeting I could see the memory of lazy flashing across his mind, powerless to change it. I didn't revel in his defeat. I let the results speak. Every strategic acquisition, every new client, every success became the proof of what I had built, not out of revenge, but out of vision. And the irony wasn't lost on me. The very insult meant to break me had become my driving force, shaping me into someone unstoppable. Friends and colleagues noticed the change too. They remarked on my confidence, my decisiveness, my ability to handle pressure without faltering. They didn't know the full story, but they could see the results, and in a strange way, that was enough. Validation didn't need to come from him. It came from life itself. Looking back, I realized how toxic Mr. Crane's arrogance had been. It wasn't just the insult, it was the pattern, the constant belittling that forced me to doubt myself. And yet, it was also the spark. Without it, I might never have pushed myself this far, never have learned how to navigate the complicated world of business, never have discovered the power of patience and strategy. The moral, I think, is simple. People will try to define you with their words to limit what they believe you can achieve. But your potential is never in their hands. It's in yours. And sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't to destroy them, but to rise so high that their opinions become irrelevant. As for me, I finally felt free. free from the need to prove anything to anyone but myself, free from the shadows of someone else's arrogance, and free to build a legacy that was entirely my own, born from ambition, resilience, and unwavering focus. I never sought to humiliate Mr. Crane, but the truth has a way of exposing everything. And when people saw the results, the company thriving under my leadership, the contracts secured, the clients impressed, they understood. The lazy employee was gone. In her place stood someone far stronger, smarter, and far more unstoppable. Sometimes I think about that day he called me lazy. The sting hasn't fully faded, but I've learned to carry it differently. It's no longer a mark of shame or anger. It's a reminder of what I've overcome, what I'm capable of, and how carefully patience and strategy can transform even the deepest wound into strength. And maybe that's the real lesson. Life will test you, people will doubt you, and yes, sometimes betrayal and insult will feel unbearable. But if you channel that energy, focus on your goals, and stay relentless, you can turn their underestimation into your ultimate triumph. I didn't just buy the company behind his back. I reclaimed my power, my dignity, and my future. And in doing so, I finally understood what it truly means to win. Not by hurting others, but by proving to yourself that nothing and no one can define your limits. Months passed, and the world kept turning. But my world had changed forever. The company I bought was thriving. It wasn't the biggest in the industry, but it had heart, purpose, and vision. Every person I hired, every decision I made, carried the lessons I had learned from the years under Mr. Crane's thumb. I promised myself I'd never become like him, never belittle someone just to feel powerful, never crush ambition to protect my ego, because I had lived through that. And I knew what it did to people. Sometimes when I walked through my new office, I'd catch a glimpse of someone staying late, working quietly at their desk, unsure if anyone noticed their effort. I made sure to stop, to appreciate them, to let them know I saw their dedication. Because I remember what it felt like to give everything and still be called lazy. Ironically, life had come full circle. One afternoon, my assistant informed me that Mr. Crane wanted to meet. He had been struggling, his company losing ground, his influence fading. I agreed to see him. Not out of spite, but out of curiosity. When he walked into my office, he looked smaller. The once dominant man who had controlled every conversation now seemed lost. He tried to smile, tried to pretend it was just business, but his eyes told the truth. He was humbled. He congratulated me on my success, his tone polite, but heavy. Then, in a moment I'll never forget, he said softly, "I was wrong about you." I didn't respond immediately. I just nodded. There was nothing left to prove. No need to remind him of the pain, the humiliation, or the years of underestimation. Life had already delivered that lesson for me. Before he left, I said one thing. Everyone starts somewhere, Mr. Crane. The difference is how you treat people on your way up, because you might meet them again on your way down. He lowered his head, gave a faint nod, and walked out quietly. That moment, more than any victory or deal, felt like closure. After he left, I sat by my office window, watching the city lights come alive below. I thought about the younger version of myself, the one who had cried out of frustration, who had questioned his worth, who had dreamed of proving them all wrong. That person had finally found peace. Revenge had turned into redemption, because the real revenge wasn't buying the company. It wasn't the exposure or the power shift. It was becoming someone better, someone who rose without losing humanity, someone who proved that integrity, patience, and resilience were stronger than arrogance and cruelty. And maybe that's what makes success truly powerful, when it's not just about winning, but about becoming. In the end, Mr. Crane's insult, "You're lazy," had become the fire that fueled everything. It reminded me that sometimes the world won't see your worth until you show them what you can build from their doubt. Now, when I walk into meetings or sign deals, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel gratitude. Because without that moment of humiliation, I might never have found my strength. Life has a strange way of turning pain into purpose. Sometimes, the person who tries to break you ends up being the one who builds you. And as I sit here, looking out over the skyline, I whisper the same words that started it all. Thank you for calling me lazy, because that single insult didn't destroy me. It defined the person I was meant to become.